Hey Jags, we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about cells today. I know you have done cells before back in biology, but again, it's been some time, so we wanted to go over this. We're going to break this down into 3 different video parts just to help it make sense a little more in smaller pieces. So, kind of quick reminder that all things, living or non-living, is made of atoms, and some of the atoms we look at in the body are really important because they make up your cells. The first atom is carbon. This is your primary component of all living materials. In college, you might take organic chemistry, and this is the chemistry of all living things. Anything with carbon, or all living things have carbon in them. You'll find it in your carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, so many different things in the body, which is a really interesting thing. Fun fact is because there's so much carbon in the body, you can actually turn your body into a diamond after you pass away. They can take all those ashes and go through a lab process and make an artificial diamond, because diamonds are made of carbon and you are made of carbon. So therefore you are just a diamond in the rough right now. Other important things are oxygen. You know you have to have oxygen to live, but have you ever wondered why you have to have that oxygen? Why do I need that oxygen? What happens to it after I breathe? I mean, it goes in my lungs, and then what? Well, eventually it goes to all of your little cells, and that's needed for your cells to make ATP. So without that oxygen, you can't make any energy. Like, you can have all the nutrients and everything there, but you can't actually break it down and use it unless you have that oxygen. So that's why it's really important. Other stuff is hydrogen. If you remember from chemistry, your pH actually stands for presence of hydrogen. So this controls the acidity of the fluids in your body. Some of your fluids, especially areas exposed to the outside world, are going to be more acidic, such as your saliva. Your skin itself is actually slightly acidic because it's protecting you from bacteria, versus your blood is slightly basic. It's like a 7.45. So it's on this basic side. So that hydrogen is really important to determine the acidic or basicness of your body fluids. Nitrogen, this is in all your genetic material. Remember, there's nitrogen bases from biology, that A, T, C, and G. Those all have nitrogen. And then also other trace elements like iron, sodium, calcium, potassium are in your body. Iron we use in hemoglobin, which is what allows you to carry oxygen. Sodium, potassium, calcium are used in every nerve signal you send. So without them, you can't send nerve signals. Potassium in particular, if you don't have enough potassium, your nerves can't send signals and you kind of start to get paralyzed. On the flip side, if you have too much potassium, it can cause you to have a heart attack. So it's kind of why it's all about that homeostasis balance with these elements. You can't have too much, you can't have too little. And so we already talked, like, you take these different atoms, put them together to make molecules. There's lots of different molecules. One of the most common molecules in your body is water. Almost 2/3 of your body is water. Which means, are you drinking enough water? Because 2/3 of your body is water. Why would you not be drinking water all the time to help replace that? There are some important properties to it. It has a high heat capacity. If you remember from chemistry, this is how you can absorb heat and it not greatly affect it, because water is really good at absorbing heat. Water is slightly polar, which means almost everything can dissolve in it. That's why we call it the universal solvent. We use it for reactivity and cushioning. Like, you have fluids for cushioning. You have like cerebrospinal fluid. You have fluid around your brain and spinal cord, which we use for cushioning. During pregnancy, amniotic fluid around the baby we use for cushioning. All of those have so much water in them. And then besides smaller molecules like water, we also have big molecules such as macromolecules. Macro means large. These are these large molecules. So it's a whole bunch of stuff put together making big giant molecules. There's 4 main ones you need to be aware of. One are your carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are what our body uses for our quick energy. This is like that glucose that we break down to make that ATP. It's composed of sugars, so we call those saccharides. So a monosaccharide, mono means one, so this is one sugar. These are your simple sugars. These are your glucose, fructose in fruits, easy to break down. Disaccharides, di means two, so there's 2 sugars put together. Your sucrose, lactose, and the polysaccharide, that's a mini sugars. These are your starches, cellulose, those things. So if we look at them, you can see your glucose, your monosaccharide, and your disaccharide. These are both considered simple sugars. These are easy to break down. Like this only has 1 bond between here before I can start breaking it down. And then a starch is a complex carb. If you've heard of simple carbs versus complex carbs, that's what we're talking about. So the sugar in your brownie and cookies, those are easy to break down, but that means that extra sugar gets stored as fat in your body. Versus your complex carbs that are in like potatoes and wheat bread and stuff like that, it takes your body a lot longer and a lot more work to break this down, so you're actually expending energy to be able to break this down. And it takes longer, and so it lasts longer and you feel full longer and those kinds of things. Proteins, this is another big important molecule. 2/3 of your body is water. If I dehydrate you and take out all the water, the stuff that's left, half of that is protein. That's a lot of protein material. So proteins are super important. They are the building blocks of stuff. They are made of amino acids. There's 20 amino acids. Most of them your body makes naturally, but there's a few you have to get through in your food. So it's really important for you to get enough protein in your diet. We use them to build like all these parts of your cell, your Golgi apparatus and all those organelles. Those are made of proteins. We use them for antibodies to fight diseases, enzymes, hemoglobin to carry blood. All of those are composed of proteins. The third one are your lipids. We commonly call them fats. They are made of fatty acids. So you can see these little individual molecules, the red head and then the little yellow tails coming off. That's one fatty acid, so I can put them together to make a lipid. Lipids aren't bad. Everything is a balance. Lipids are in every single cell of your body, right? Like if you remember your cell, you have this phospholipid bilayer. So it makes up the membrane of every single cell of your body. It's cholesterol that keeps your membrane fluid. It's some of your hormones. It's how you store energy. It's cushioning, insulation. So lipids have a use in your body, just not too much. And then the last macromolecule are your nucleic acids. This is that genetic information, right? Like your DNA, which carries information of how to make all of those different proteins, and then RNA, which is what we use with coding and carries that information. So remember your DNA, RNA molecules. We're not going to go into them in great depth like you did in biology, but just a quick reminder. And so we take those macromolecules and put them together to make your cells. And you can see in this picture, your cells have all kinds of different shapes. It is not that typical picture from your biology textbook. They are round, they are pointed, they are cubes. Because again, structure and function go together. They have different structures because they have different functions. You can see your nerve cell have all these branches because they have to reach out and talk to other nerve cells. Your little sperm cell has a flagella because it has to move and swim. My blood cells that have to be tiny and squeeze through. My epithelial cells, this is lining your trachea that's got little cilia to help get stuff out of there. My bone cells look very different than muscle cells because they have different functions. And they can also range in sizes from some micrometers to over a meter long because it has to stretch, all the way down to your pinky toe. So as you can see, Those kinds of things vary.